I want you to picture a specific kind of darkness. It's late at night, 2009. You're driving down a back road in Stonington, Connecticut. This isn't a highway. It's one of those really quiet rural routes where the trees just hang over the road.
Right. The only thing you'd expect to see is maybe a deer.
Exactly. But
Okay.
then you see it, a little flicker of orange light up ahead in the brush on the side of the road.
So you're thinking, what, a small grass fire?
Yeah, just a small fire.
Yeah.
So you slow down, being a good citizen. Maybe you think about calling it in. But as soon as you roll the window down, this smell hits you. And it is not burning leaves. It's something else.
Are they organic?
Something really wrong. You get out, you walk a little closer, and the shape inside the flames starts to become clear. It's not a pile of leaves. It's a human body.
That is a true nightmare scenario for the person who found it. I mean, that's a moment that changes your life. But for the detectives who arrived soon after, that fire was really just the opening move in a huge forensic chess match.
Yeah.
Because what they found wasn't just a murder victim. It was a crime scene that had been meticulously engineered to be anonymous.
And that's what we're really digging into today. This isn't just a whodunit. We know who do it. This is a deep dive into the battle between a killer who did everything he possibly could to erase a person's identity and the forensic scientists who used these tiny microscopic clues to give her that name back. We are looking at the murder of Rebecca Koester.
And we have a lot to get through. We're pulling from police reports, digital forensics, and especially the autopsy findings from Dr. Ira Kaner.
Yeah.
The mission here is to understand the mechanics of a cover-up. How does a killer try to build a perfect dead end? And how does science just tear it all down?
Okay, so let's go back to that roadside in Connecticut. Police arrive, they tape off the scene. What are they actually looking at? Because from the reports, this was not just a simple body dump.
Oh no, it was a scene of just absolute devastation. The body had been wrapped in this really complex layering system. There was nylon, heavy blankets, and then it was all bound super tight with industrial duct tape.
So that would contain the fire, right?
It creates what's basically an oven effect. The heat becomes incredibly intense and contained. By the time the medical examiner, Dr. Kaner, actually saw the remains, the body was charred beyond any visual recognition. But the fire was just the last step. The real work of erasing her identity happened before any match was ever lit.
This is where the details are. They're gruesome, but we have to talk about them because they show the killer's mindset. This wasn't a crime of passion, someone just lashing out. This was surgical.
Surgical is exactly the right word. The autopsy showed that the killer had systematically removed every primary way you could identify a person. The nose and ears were cut off to mess with facial reconstruction. The fingers and toes were severed.
Okay, so removing the fingers, that's obviously to prevent fingerprinting. That's a criminal 101, right?
Exactly. AFIS, the fingerprint database, is the first place law enforcement goes. You remove the fingertips, you blind the system. But it went even further than that. There was this one detail in the report that was just chilling. A large patch of skin had been flayed from the victim's lower back.
Yeah.
Just peeled away.
I remember reading that and having to stop. It seems so cruel, almost ritualistic. Why would you do that?
It's just cold logic.
Yeah.
The lower back is a really common spot for tattoos, especially on young women. If your goal is to turn a specific person into a generic Jane Doe, you have to remove anything unique. A face can be hard to identify after trauma, but a tattoo.
A tattoo is a barcode.
The barcode. By cutting that skin away, the killer was trying to remove the one piece of art that could link that body to a name.
So you have a body with no face, no fingerprints, no distinguishing marks, and it's burned on the side of a road in a state where nobody matching her description has been recorded missing. It feels like the perfect erasure.
It almost was. But here's the paradox of a complicated cover-up. The more things you do to hide the crime, the more chances you have to make a mistake. The killer was so focused on the soft tissue, the skin, the fingers, he completely overlooked the hard tissue.
The teeth.
He left the teeth.
And we hear dental records all the time on TV shows, but why are they so tough? Why do they survive when everything else is gone?
It's all about their structure. Teeth are the hardest substance in the human body. Enamel can withstand temperatures way higher than skin or muscle can. So even in a fire that just destroys soft tissue, the root and the pulp of the tooth often survive. And if you have an x-ray from when the person was alive,
You can match it.
a forensic odontologist can match the shape, the spacing, previous dental work. It's nearly 100% accurate. It's as good as a fingerprint.
So while the police in Connecticut are looking at this anonymous victim, we have to pull back about 80 miles away across state lines into Long Island, New York. And there, the silence of that rural road is replaced by the absolute panic of a family.
We're talking about the family of Rebecca Koester. Rebecca was 24. She was a home health aide. And by all accounts, just this vibrant, beautiful, responsible person, the glue of her friend group, not someone who would just vanish.
She'd gone out with friends and just never came home. Her mother, Barbara, said she knew almost instantly that something was terribly wrong. That whole mother's intuition thing. It was screaming at her.
And tragically, she was right. Because police databases are all linked up now, the description of the missing woman from Long Island got a hit against the unidentified victim in Connecticut.
And just like that, the two cases snap together in the worst possible way. They get Rebecca's dental records, they compare them, and it's a match. The Jane Doe is Rebecca Coaster.
And that's the moment the whole case shifts. It goes from a missing person to a homicide investigation. For the family, I mean, you can't even imagine. The reports say her mother just collapsed when they told her, just screaming, "They killed my baby!"
It's just heartbreaking. But for the detectives, that ID gives them the one thing they need, a place to start. Once you have a name, you can start retracing her steps. So let's look at that night. Rebecca was out with her friend Nicole and also a new boyfriend, a guy named Dan.
And Dan naturally becomes prime suspect number one. Statistically, in cases of violence against women, it's almost always an intimate partner. He was the last person known to see her alive. He told police he drove her home, dropped her off around 3:30 a.m.
Okay, but here's where it starts to look really bad for Dan. They bring him in, they put him on a polygraph, and he fails it.
He fails the lie detector test, yes.
So to the average person, and probably to a lot of cops back in the day, that sounds like case closed. He's the boyfriend, he was last with her, and the machine says he's lying. Why wasn't he arrested on the spot?
Because we have to be so careful with the myth of the polygraph. In the scientific community, and now mostly in the legal system, polygraphs are seen as, well, deeply unreliable. They don't detect lies. There's no biological signal for lying. They just measure stress, heart rate, blood pressure, sweat.
So if you're in a police station, you're being accused of murdering your girlfriend who you're also grieving, you might be a little stressed out.
You'd be extremely stressed out. You can fail a polygraph because you're terrified or you're grieving or just nervous. It's a stress detector, not a truth detector.
So they didn't have any hard evidence, and Dan had something the real killer probably didn't count on.
A solid alibi.
Yeah.
Multiple friends confirmed his story, where he was after he dropped Rebecca off. There was zero physical evidence tying him to that crime scene in Connecticut. So investigators had to pivot. If Dan drops her off at 3:30 and she gets inside her house, what happened next?
They turned to the digital trail. We all leave these digital footprints now with our phones, and Rebecca's phone records had a story to tell.
This was the big breakthrough. Looking at her call logs, they saw activity right after Dan left. At 4:10 a.m., and then again at 4:27 a.m., she got 2 calls from a number with a 613 area code.
That's Massachusetts.
It is. But the caller wasn't in Massachusetts. And this is where cell tower triangulation is so powerful. I think a lot of people think it's like GPS, a dot on a map, but it's a bit different.
It's more about zones, right?
Exactly. It's about sectors and signal strength. By tracking which towers and which specific side of the towers the phone was connecting to, they could see the device with that 617 number moving. It was traveling across Long Island, getting closer and closer to Rebecca's house.
That is so creepy. It's like watching a predator closing in on a radar screen.
The first call at 4.10 pinged a tower a few miles from her house. The second one, at 4.27, pinged the tower right next to her house. So that tells us 2 things. 1, the killer came to her. And 2, because she went outside to meet him, she probably knew him, or at least felt comfortable enough to walk out her door at 4:30 in the morning.
So who owned the number? The police trace it, and it basically leads them back in time. Back to earlier that night, before she ever went home, back to a bar.
Exactly. They pull the security footage from the bar Rebecca was at. And on the grainy video, they see a man. He's dressed pretty nicely, wearing a sweater vest, looks totally non-threatening. He approaches Rebecca.
And they found a witness, another woman at the bar, named Jennifer.
Yes. Jennifer remembered this guy very clearly. He introduced himself as J. Brown. But she did not have a good impression of him. She described him as perverted and really pushy. He actually made her save his number in her phone so he could text her later.
Don't tell me. The number he made Jennifer save
was the exact same 617 number that called Rebecca's phone.
Got him. So J. Brown is our guy, but I'm guessing J. Brown isn't his real name.
Not even close. Police quickly figured out J. Brown was an alias. The man in the sweater vest was actually Evans Ganthier. And unlike that clean-cut image he had at the bar, Ganthier had a history. a rap sheet for domestic violence and promoting prostitution.
Okay, so now we have a suspect with a violent past who was with her at the bar, who called her at 4:30 in the morning, and his phone pinged right at her house. But you still need that physical link, that one piece of evidence that ties him to the body in Connecticut. And this is where the forensics is just, it's mind-blowing.
It's a real testament to the crime lab. Remember the duct tape that was wrapped around the body? Duct tape is incredibly sticky. It's so easy to leave a latent print on it. But on the outside of the tape, any print would have been destroyed by the fire.
And not on the inside.
Not on the sticky side.
Yeah.
Think about it. When Ganthier tore a piece of tape or wrapped it, his thumb touched the adhesive. Then he stuck it down, folding it over the blankets, and in doing so, he basically sealed his own fingerprint inside a protective capsule.
So the fire chars the outside, but the glue on the inside preserves the print.
Perfectly. When the forensic techs carefully peeled those layers apart in the lab, the adhesive side was pristine, and they found a perfect latent print of Evans Ganthier's thumb, trapped.
That is the smoking gun. You can try to explain away a phone call, maybe it was a wrong number. You can't explain why your fingerprint is sandwiched inside the wrapping of a burning body 80 miles from your home.
It was irrefutable. They arrested him. But this is where the case takes this really weird psychological turn. Ganthier didn't stay silent. He talked, but he didn't confess to murder.
Wait, he admits to getting rid of the body, but not to the actual killing? How does that even work?
He came up with this elaborate story to try and minimize what he did. He claimed he picked Rebecca up, and while they were in his car, she just suddenly started foaming at the mouth and having a seizure. He said he panicked, drove her to his garage, and then she tripped over a dumbbell, fell, hit her head on the cement floor, and died.
The tragic accident defense.
Exactly. He claimed that because he had a criminal record, he was just terrified nobody would believe him. So in this panic, he decided to, cut off her fingers, toes, nose, ears, and cut the butterfly tattoo off her back that explains the missing patch of skin, and then burn the body.
That is a lot of very specific surgical work for someone who is panicking. But, just to play devil's advocate here, could it be true? Is it possible she fell?
And this is where forensic pathology becomes the voice for the victim. Ganthier can say whatever he wants. The body tells the truth. Dr. Kaner, the medical examiner, just dismantled that story piece by piece with the biological evidence.
Okay, let's break it down. Ganthier says she hit her head on the cement. What did the autopsy show?
Absolutely zero evidence of that. If you fall and hit your head on concrete hard enough to die, there's massive trauma, a skull fracture, bleeding, a contusion. Dr. Kaner found no trauma to her skull whatsoever. It was completely intact. That right there invalidates his entire story.
Okay, so that's strike one. What did he find was the real cause of death?
The autopsy showed she'd been stabbed. She had 4 stab wounds to her neck and 1 deep puncture wound to her liver. This was not a fall. This was a violent attack with a knife.
But couldn't Ganthier just argue he stabbed her after she was already dead from the fall? Like to make sure or something?
He could try. But science has an answer for that too. It's something called an air embolism. And this is the most critical, if technical, part of the whole case. When the veins in Rebecca's neck were cut, her heart was still pumping.
Okay.
That pumping action creates negative pressure, which sucks air into the open veins. That air then travels through the bloodstream to the heart.
Like a bubble in a fuel line.
Exactly like that. Dr. Kaner found air bubbles trapped in the right ventricle of her heart. That air can only get there if the heart is actively beating to pull it in. If she were already dead, the pump is off and the air just stays at the wound.
The embolism is biological proof that she was alive when she was stabbed.
That is horrifying. But what an incredible detail to be able to prove. It just completely destroys the accident theory. What about the fire, though? I have to ask. Was she alive when he set the fire?
Thankfully, no. And again, science tells us that. They checked her lungs. If you're alive in a fire, you breathe in smoke. They find soot in your airways, carbon monoxide in your blood. Rebecca's lungs were clean. So the timeline is, she is stabbed to death. Then she is mutilated. And then she is burned. Every single step he took was a calculated act to cover up a murder, not a panic over an accident.
100%. And there was one final nail in his coffin. Despite his cleanup attempts, investigators pulled up the floorboards in his SUV. They found blood soaked deep into the foam padding under the carpet. DNA tests confirmed it was Rebecca's blood. The violence didn't happen in a garage. It happened right there in his car.
So the jury hears all of this, the lies, the phone data, the fingerprint, the autopsy. How long did it take them to decide?
It was not a long deliberation, just 5 hours. They convicted Evans Ganthier of murder in the second degree.
And he was sentenced too.
25 years to life.
You know, we started this talking about her mother, Barbara, and I read a quote from her after the trial. She said she felt like justice was served, but that the pain is just. It's eternal. They killed my baby, it turned into he's going to prison, but Rebecca is still gone.
And that's the hard truth here. Forensics can solve the puzzle, but it can't undo the loss. But there is a really profound contrast in this case that I think is worth thinking about.
What's that?
Think about Evans Ganthier. His entire mission was to erase Rebecca. He took her face, her fingerprints, her tattoo. He literally tried to turn her into nothing, just ash on the side of a road.
Yeah.
He wanted her to be nameless.
Yeah.
But the forensic scientists, Dr. Kaner, the lab techs, the detectives, they did the exact opposite. They used these microscopic details, a ridge on a fingertip, a bubble of air in a heart, a dental record, to give her back her name. They refused to let her be erased.
That's a really powerful way to see it. Science is a way of, I don't know, reclaiming dignity for the victim.
Absolutely. He tried to make her invisible, and the system made sure she was seen.
It really does make you think, and it leads me to one last thought I want to leave everyone with today. We walk past people every single day. We sit next to them in bars. Evans Ganthier was just some guy in a sweater vest. He was Jay Brown. He blended in. He looked completely harmless.
The monster's in plain sight.
Right. Exactly. He was buying drinks and chatting people up, all while harboring this capacity for absolute brutality. And it just raises that really unsettling question that we all try to ignore when we're out. How much do you really know about the stranger standing next to you?
It's a question that can keep you up at night.
It certainly does. That's all for this deep dive. Stay safe out there, and thanks for listening.
Take care.